It's not every day that a product surprises me, but the X3 from Maxum Fitness has done just that. And if I'm one of the dozens of other companies selling an all-in-one style rack like this, I think I might be a little bit worried. With smooth, easy to adjust free motion style arms, stainless steel front uprights, a smooth counterbalance Smith machine, and a ton of included attachments, all for a competitive price from a company you've probably never even heard of. Now, don't get me wrong, it's got some quirks, so we'll make some comparisons and I'll link those companies in the description, but this one's got me excited, so let's get into it. The X3 is part of Maxum's X lineup of racks. So they're 3x3 racks with 1-inch holes and 4-way 2-inch hole spacing. They've also got an X2, which is a 6-post rack without the Smith, and the X1, which is a more compact 4-post half rack without the Smith, and even a 5/8-inch lineup, the SX series. But the star of the show are these arms. Their adjustability gives them a ton of versatility. So let's say I wanted to set up for Bayesian curls, which obviously I do. You can see how quick and easy that is. Now, free motion style arms like this aren't anything new. We've had them in commercial gyms for years, but in a home gym, they're a real game changer, which is why basically every company is racing to get their own version of these out. And that's because you can do so many curl variations with them. Okay, really it's because if you have a limited space, you know, because you're not some pretentious YouTuber who gets sent things free for review, thanks Maxum, then you need equipment that has a lot of functionality and that can do a lot of things. And these arms are exactly that. That's not to say you can't do a lot of the same things on a more traditional functional trainer style trolley. You can, but arms like this offer more functionality with less workarounds. Or maybe you like incredibly wide flies, because who cares what those science-based lifters say about wanting the resistance behind you in the stretch portion of the lift? You didn't need that crap when you were benching 315 for reps in high school. Or maybe you just want a really heavy stack and that 220 pounds right there isn't heavy enough for you. And in honesty, it probably isn't, because with a 2-to-1 pulley ratio, you're actually getting about half that weight, but you can link the stacks together using the third carabiner that Maxum gives you, which this is not the third carabiner they give you, but there is a third carabiner. Or you can use what I prefer, Bells of Steels or GetRx or anybody else's connecting plate. Now we're just gonna throw some weight on here to set up for low rows, and you do that by adding this bracket that Maxum gives you. It just goes on the legs here. You're supposed to use hitch pins there, but I'm gonna live dangerously right now. And then we've got the telescoping foot plate that we'll throw on here. And now I actually will use a hitch pin, and then rowing and cable work tends to work better with an actual attachment. So I'll throw this on here, and now you've got combined stacks and 220 pounds to work with. But that's not enough for me. Well, actually it is, but it might not be enough for you, so you can throw even more weight on these included weight horns. The only problem there is that depending on the diameter of the plates you're loading on the outside, they may hit the plates you've got in storage, but that only happens on the outside. On the inside, everything clears, and I'm gonna remove that before I forget. Now listen, I'm a pretentious YouTuber, and I can't low row on the floor, but there's nothing stopping me from swinging these arms out, raising them up, and then I can pull a bench in here and row off that. Now, bracing can become problematic as you get heavier in weights, but it is a good example of the versatility of these arms. Now, I never actually do this, but just to show you all the different ways you can use this thing, Maxum gives you a pair of these brackets and cables that you can put wherever you want. Let me just get this arm out of the way. Now I'm gonna throw this on here, and then since this is 3x3, there's nothing stopping me from moving this plate over here. Now I just swap out my attachment for this cable and get this bench out of my way, remembering to put the attachment back on here. Just bear with me. And now I can low row off of one side with that single stack. Of course, I've got a telescoping foot plate right here, so I can adjust that depending on the range of motion I want, and I can even change the cable length by raising or lowering the arm. It's a very adaptable system, even if not always the most efficient. For example, I know this might be getting maybe a little bit wild, but I also know there's a lot of people in the home gym community that are gonna come up with a lot crazier things than I will. But if I grab my spotters and then I'm going to install them upside down, and now I'm gonna install my row plate on the top of them, or maybe on the bottom of them. And now I'm going to move my bench for the 16th time in this single video, but I can now row off of a bench using my row plate. At this point, you've probably noticed a few things. One, I'm getting a little winded, so I probably need to do more cardio. And two, this thing comes with an absurd number of hitch pins. I think I counted like 11 of them, which means I could give one to every single one of my friends and still have like 10 left over. So if you're wondering why don't they use mag pins, well, that's because stainless steel isn't particularly magnetic. Although the benefit of stainless steel, besides being cool, is it's a little bit smoother, which makes these free motion arms a little bit easier to move. And that was one of my complaints about the GetRx Tornado arms. Those big heavy arms cantilevered out and dug the UHMW into the upright, making them difficult to move. Maxum's put their trolleys on 4 rollers, which I'm happy to see GetRx take my advice and add some rollers to their design, because while these free motion style arms are heavy, the rollers do make them a little more manageable. And number 3, if anybody even remembers, we're still counting, some of these setups probably look a little clunky and like they take some time. And they can, but in reality, you're probably not rapidly switching between intricate low row setups. It's more likely that you're just going from really heavy weights on a delt raise. It's more likely that you're going from a lat raise to a delt fly. And in that case, this makes for a very good functional trainer. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, these arms are very versatile. You've got a good amount of cable travel and the pull is smooth. Even with them spinning around like this, the whole thing just feels fluid. With a 2-to-1 pulley ratio, I've got a low starting weight and small weight increments, which is great for those functional trainer style movements, but maybe somebody in the comments can help me solve a few mysteries here. What do I do with the weight sticker on the top plate? If I put it where everything else goes, it blocks the weight selector pin. And also, a 12-pound starting weight, I get why they do it, because the added weight of this, which is a feature I love, but why not just give me a smaller weight plate like Bell's does with the Kraken? Now I've got weird weight increments, 42 pounds and 52 pounds, but it's a 2-to-1 pulley ratio. So 52 pounds is really 26 pounds. And while I appreciate the honesty, I'd rather you just lie to me and say it's 25 pounds like everyone else does, because I hate to break it to you, but most companies' stickers aren't accurate anyway. All right, what about vertical pulls? Things like lat push downs, lat pull downs, unilateral stuff. You get the idea. Actually, these carabiners suck. The lock gets in the way and they're too small, but I guess I'd rather have them cut corners here than somewhere else. Actually, these cable attachments aren't gonna win any awards either. They're all kind of cheaply done. So you've got rubber or foam grips instead of knurling. And even some of these attachments for the rack, you can see the tolerances are a little loose, but it is actually pretty impressive how much stuff comes with this rack. I think there's 5 cable attachments, spotter arms, a dip attachment, a landmine attachment, sandwich J-cups, and that's not even everything. So could some of the attachments be better done? Sure, but this whole thing could also cost a lot more money, and they're solid and stable, even if not the best thing I've ever used. But it does make storage a little bit problematic, which is why you'll see little hooks and magnetic baskets on my rack. It keeps things neat and tidy, and they're all things you can learn about in our storage hacks video. Who's better at self-promotion than me? All right, for lat pull downs, we're gonna link the stacks again, giving me access to the full 220 pounds of weight. Let me throw this bench here, and you'll see at 6 foot tall, I can get a full range of motion. If I needed to brace myself, I could put some leg rollers in here and I can pull straight down as well, making for a pretty solid lat pull down on our 88-inch tall rack, although Maxum does make a shorter version of this as well. Or maybe you want to do unilateral pulls. Well, you've got dual independent stacks and the arms are highly adjustable, so you shouldn't have any real issues there. Although, depending on your height and the exercise, you might have some range of motion problems, although I found just a slight adjusting of your position helps out there. Or you could sit on the floor. The pull points are about 80 inches at their highest and 15 inches at their lowest, which I found to work pretty well for us. We haven't run into any major limitations. Would it be nice if you could adjust them vertically like GetRx Tornado arms? Sure, but you'd introduce more mechanisms, which means you'd get more play between components and they'd be heavier. There's always trade-offs, and I found with these arms being about 2 feet long, they link together well and overall work very well. But wait, there's more. And of course there is. I could probably make an hour-long video trying to show you all the things that this rack comes with and all the things you can do with it and still not cover everything. But it's only a matter of time before I hit myself in the head with these things while trying to talk and look at the camera. So let's talk about the rack and the Smith machine. The X3 is part of Maxum's X series of racks. So they're 3x3 racks with 1-inch holes. And that's kind of become the standard for home gym racks lately because of their modularity and interchangeability. They're, for the most part, standardized. Sure, there are differences between metric and customary racks, typically very small size differences, but for the most part, it's awesome because you can swap components between racks. So if I want to put Rogues, Go Strong Roller J-Cups on my rep rack, I can. Yeah, there'll be some size differences, sometimes a little tight and a little bit loose. And I'm sure we're all ignoring the fact that my gym is super dirty. That's just what it looks like. But for the most part, they fit, which is awesome because I can swap things and I'm not limited. Except these are literally 1-inch holes. And the problem there is Maxum's hole sizes are literally 1 inch and our customary holes are actually a little bit bigger, but we just say 1-inch holes in hardware because it's easier than telling people there's a slight difference between customary and metric and hole and pin sizes. You start telling people that, they think you're a nerd. So we'll just say it can be a little hit or miss. Metric attachments tend to work fine because of their smaller pin sizes, and I've actually had a few American-made ones work as well. Like I said, it's got its quirks, but I think for most people, they're probably not deal breakers just because it comes with so many attachments and accessories. You won't really be left wanting more, but it would be nice if they did a little bit of a soft update, maybe enlarge the hole size a little bit, tweak the starting weight and address a few of my other little nitpicks, but as is, it's still a very good rack. And as a rack, it's pretty solid. I mean, literally, it's 11 gauge steel, and that's how we test things around here. So it's beyond solid. There's enough depth for incline work and enough space for a spotter. The Smith machine doesn't get in your way. We've run this thing through weeks of workouts, and about the only thing I could maybe complain about was you can't go super low on rack pulls because of the design of these spotter arms. Which is why I prefer more compact, traditional style spotters. So on a normal spotter arm, you just have UHMW here to protect your bar. I've seen a few that are designed like this. This is a safety strap style spotter arm. It allows you to use safety straps outside of your rack, and it works well for that type of thing. It will be a little bit gentler on your bar, which might be nice for things like pin presses. As for the Smith machine, I can't tell you how often it feels like it's the last thing companies think about. You'll end up with a really bad range of motion or a ton of lateral deflection. But this is nice. So it's counterbalanced, giving you a really low starting weight. It's obviously smooth. It can get real low. And then the safeties are easy to adjust, which is nice because if something were to happen, not that I recommend you do this, but they'll stay in place. There's plenty of space to work and position yourself, and it's just nice to see one that just works. They even have this vertical leg press foot plate. So let me show you how this works. It's just gonna attach to the Smith bar on that channel right there. Then you're gonna lock it in with these pop pins, and you can actually angle it depending on how you want it. Then you're gonna get it into position. So we'll say about there, pull your bench up, and then you get into position. And just like this, you're gonna go, nope, absolutely not. Not today, Final Destination. I've never met one of these things I like. They're awkward, and when loaded up, they tend to put a lot of pressure on your lower back. That's why I'd like if they offered some of this stuff a la carte. That way you can pick and choose what you want. Maybe I already have low profile spotter arms, or I don't want this vertical leg press. I can build it how I want, and we knock some of that price down a little bit, but it's how a lot of these companies do these all-in-one racks. And at $4,300 shipped, while it's not cheap, GetRx Tornado Smith is around $4,000 without any attachments at all. Bells of Steel's Colossus is closer to $5K depending on how you build it. And Force USA C20 starts at $6,500. And all those options, like this one, are imported. So my best piece of advice is show your wife the most expensive one, and then when you go to buy this one, she'll think you're getting a great deal. And honestly, when all things are considered, I do think this is a very solid rack and a pretty good deal. But let me know what you think. Thank you so much to our Patreons for allowing me to make content like this, and thanks for watching.